Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Southern Sorcery. Today, we are looking at the brand new Precon, The Blame Game, from the set Murders at Karlov Manor. Has the commander, Nelly, Borca, Impulsive, Accuser. She is 2 red and a white for a 2/4 human detective with vigilance. Let's check out what her abilities do. Whenever Nelly, Impulsive, Accuser attacks, suspect target creature, then goad all suspected creatures. So you're going to pick a target creature, you're going to suspect that creature, and then any creatures you have suspected become goaded, which means that they have to attack, but not you if able. Then she has a second clause that says, whenever one or more creatures an opponent controls deals combat damage to one or more of your opponents, you and that creature's controller each draw a card. So it incentivizes your opponents to attack each other, and then that way you get to draw a card and they get to draw a card. So kind of a little bit of a group hug. An interesting spin on GOAD. So with no further ado, let's check out the $50 budget upgrade for this deck. So first off, we will start with our removals, cards that we have cut to make room for cards we think are better to fit within that $50 budget. If you've ever done a Precon upgrade before, you know that the worst part is the land base. What is a deck without the right mana base? So we have cut all of the tapped lands, and this deck was kind of weird in that it came with 13 lands out of the 37 that tapped for colorless. They did have, some of them did have like secondary functions, pay 4 mana to give target creature double strike, pay 4 mana to, this, that, or the other. And while that is nice for functionality, you're probably never going to use it, and we took a lot of that stuff out. So outside of the lands, we have also cut our Planeswalker, Elspeth, Sun's Champion. She's useful in this deck. There's just other things that synergize a little bit better than this. Also cut Itali, a fantastic card. Lets you play the cards off of other people's decks. It's a 6-drop. Then you got to wait a turn. Everyone knows what Itali is. It's a pretty big threat. Also, there's no real synergy in this deck for casting cards from exile or playing other people's cards. We can do that a little bit better with some other stuff, as you're going to see. We also got rid of Steel Hellkite. That is the colorless artifact dragon. Doesn't really do much in this deck. We also got rid of the Ancient Stone Idol. That is the big 12/12. Cast 1 less for each attacking creature. Yeah, you could probably get it for less than 10, but that's, in your opening hand, that's really tough. Winds of Wrath is another cut, which is the board wipe for creatures that aren't enchanted. We don't really want a board wipe, and if we are going to board wipe, most of the enchantments in this deck are stuff to enchant your opponent's creatures with, so then they're going to retain those creatures. You're going to kill all of your own stuff. Kind of just doesn't really make much sense. We've got Deflecting Palm, getting rid of Promise of Loyalty. We're going to get rid of Windborn Muse and Ghostly Prison. Those are the 2 that you have to pay to for each attacking creature. Stuff should be goaded. It shouldn't be swinging at you anyway. And we've also gotten rid of Sun Titan. It's a good card. It's just, again, we don't have a lot of recursion synergies. It costs 6, very slow in the early game, and it doesn't recur anything. It only recurs creatures 3 or less. And then we also got rid of Gideon's Sacrifice as a 1 instant. All damage that would be dealt to you this turn is dealt to a target creature you control instead. Maybe that would save you, but there's just better cards out there that are a little more all-encompassing than Gideon's Sacrifice. So those are all the cards that we're going to be removing. If you like this content, please consider liking this video and subscribing. Again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. We're a relatively new channel, so we appreciate it very, very much. Thank you, thank you. Now to everyone's favorite part, we have the additions to our deck. All right, our first couple of additions are going to be some protection for our commander. There's not really anything in the deck to really give her an advantage, so we are going to add Lightning Greaves, and in the same vein, we are also going to add Swiftfoot Boots. These are both fantastic cards. They offer some protection for your commander. Your commander really is the engine for this deck, so you really need these. We also have added Flawless Maneuver, gives all of your creatures indestructible. We also have Unbreakable Formation, gives your creatures indestructible. And if you cast it in your main phase, you get to put +1/+1 counters on all of your creatures, and they gain vigilance till the end of turn. So if you're swinging out and you need just that little bit of extra damage to get through, you put the counters on all of your creatures, and then they get vigilance, so you would still have blockers. So if you cast that kind of in the later game. We also have added Boros Signet. We have added Curse of Hospitality. You enchant player, creatures attacking the enchanted player have trample, and then whenever a creature deals combat damage to the enchanted player, that player exiles the top card of their library. Until the end of turn, that creature's controller may play that card, and they may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast that spell. More incentive to attack somebody else. We also have Taunt from the Rampart. This is a really cool GOAD card from Lord of the Rings. GOAD all creatures your opponents control until your next turn. Those creatures can't block. So pretty good. You can cast this for your attack phase. Nothing can block, and then you have an entire turn before anything can attack you again. So very good in this deck. We also added Baloth Baratal Entertainer. It is an elf shaman. It says creatures your opponents control with power less than Baloth Baratal's power are goaded. Whenever a goaded attacking or blocking creature dies, you make a treasure token. Next, we have Mother of Runes, another way to potentially protect your commander or another creature if that's something that you need in that moment, but we just have her in here just to offer a little bit more ability to try to keep your commander around a little bit longer. We also added Path to Exile and Swords to Plowshares. We are in white. There's no reason not to have these in here. There's virtually no spot removal in this Precon. We have also added Wrath of God as a board wipe, a much better board wipe, and it is one less than the existing board wipe that was in here. It's a classic. We have also added a Blasphemous Act, another great board wipe for red. You know, you can essentially cast it for 1 red potentially, depending on how many creatures are on the board. Again, we don't really want to board wipe in this deck. We want people's stuff out and attacking each other, but you know, in case that, hey, somebody's got to answer this before the next turn or somebody else is going to win, that's when you cast your board wipe. You don't want that to be the case. That is more of a, hey, bail you out of a situation. We'd rather run protection for our stuff and just keep trucking with our game plan. We do have a few cards, new cards from the set that is just coming out that fit great in this deck. First, we have Agris Kos, Spirit of Justice. He is a 2/4 Spirit Detective for 2 red white. He has double strike and vigilance. Whenever Agris enters the battlefield or attacks, choose up to 1 target creature. If it is suspected, exile it. Otherwise, suspect it. So this gives you a little bit more of the suspect, but it's also some spot removal on a creature that has double strike and vigilance. So very good. Great card from the murderers at Karlov Manor. Always like to include a couple cards from the new set that aren't in the Precons, and that one works really well. The other one is Aurelia, the Law Above. She is a 4/4 angel for 3 red and a white that has flying, vigilance, and haste. Whenever a player attacks with 3 or more creatures, you draw a card. Whenever a player attacks with 5 or more creatures, Aurelia deals 3 damage to each of your opponents and you gain 3 life. So you've got a whole board state, everything's goaded. You should be able to reap the benefits of this card pretty much immediately. So that's another great card, especially in this deck. And then we added in some lands. We added in Spectator Seating, Clifftop Retreat, Sundown Pass, and Rugged Prairie. And then we upped the basics a little bit to round that out. A lot of the time, I'd rather just have basics than some of these terrible, terrible utility lands. Thank you guys again so much for watching. We really appreciate it. We've got lots of content like this. Check us out. We're on all the social medias, and have a great day. Bye.